This video will discuss how to cite sources with missing information using the Chicago referencing style. Before we begin, it's important to note that it's quite unusual for information to be truly missing. Sometimes you have to do some searching around to find the publisher information, for example, or the author or a date. As a university student, it is your responsibility to ensure that all required information is included in your citation. But let's say you do have an item where you search thoroughly and the information you need for referencing is nowhere to be found. How you handle that will depend on what information is missing. For instance, what if your source doesn't have an author? Now, a quick reminder that organizations can be authors. So for example, if you found an article that's published by the World Health Organization but no specific author is listed, then the author would be the World Health Organization. But if you cannot find even that, then the full title is used in place of the author's name, and you would include that full title in place of the author's name for the bibliography as well. Note that this is different from anonymous authors. If a text lists the author as anonymous, then you would write anonymous in the author field and then cite as usual. Now, that all sounds great, but what if your source doesn't have a title? What if it's a work of art or a rather old book and there's not a neat and tidy title that you can find? The best thing to do in that case is to give a brief description. So, a diary of an unknown prisoner in Holloway Prison or pillory from the 15th century. Include that sort of description and put that in place of the title, in between the author and before the publication information. Now, if it's the date that's missing, particularly the year, then you will put ND, which stands for no date, in the place where you would ordinarily put the year. If you do have a date, but it's more of an estimation, you can include it in brackets and with a question mark. So for this title right here, you can see a source that was published around 1777, but we're not 100% sure on that. It's more of a guess. So we'll have most of the citation as usual, and then we put the year in square brackets and a question mark to indicate that it was approximately published this year, but it's not definitive. Alternatively, what if the item doesn't have a publisher? Then you will put NP, which stands for no publisher, where you would normally put the publisher information. If it doesn't have a publication place, so if you don't know whether it's been published in London or New York, for instance, and you cannot find that information anywhere, then you would put NP where you would put the publication city, only this time it stands for no place. If the listed place of publication is a guess, then like with approximate years, you would put the name of the place in question mark to indicate that we think it was published there, but it's not a certainty. But what if your source doesn't have any publication information at all? No publisher, no publication location, no date. In that case, you need to think about whether it's really necessary to include this source, and only include it if you can give information on where to find it. So, for example, if you found it in an archive or a special collections department, you can say something along the lines of one copy located in Oxford Brookes University Special Collections, as an example. If you can't find any page numbers, that's going to be a little bit tricky. If, for example, there's an ebook where paragraphs or sections are numbered or named, or the chapters are numbered, then you can list those instead. Otherwise, if it's something like a web page, you can just omit the page numbers if it's still easy enough for your reader to find the information where it's located. We've touched on this a little bit in the video on journal articles, but as a refresher, If your source doesn't have a volume number, then just include the issue number. If it doesn't have an issue number, then you just include the volume number. This can all seem very overwhelming, but please don't panic. As long as your citations are clear and you've included all the useful information that you can find that will be helpful for your readers to find the source, then you should be just fine. But you can always reach out for help if you're confused. To learn more about Chicago referencing, watch the other videos in this series, or visit the relevant course resource help page for your subject.